Welcome back, guys. Week 18 of our NFL season is in the books, and we have put together another momentum-building victory against the Seahawks in our regular season finale. Before we get started, remember to like, comment, subscribe, turn on those notifications down below, and let's get straight into talking about what happened in that last game. We came into today knowing it would be a much different feel as we were focused solely on playoff seeding, and at the end of it all, we came out on top 24-10. Now let's go through the story of this game. Now, we began the day with our starting unit led by Colt McCoy, as we had not received the result of Dallas's game quite yet, and he did his job, going a perfect 3 for 3 with his longest connection of 26 yards. When we heard that the Cowboys had won and locked up the 1 seed, we put in the order to enter the backups, but not until our own James Conner got to punch one into the end zone to cap off the initial drive. And he followed this by having a very impressive day, going for 65 yards, averaging 5.5 a carry. But then we switched to units, and it was Corey Clement who took over as the lead back, and he had a great day, going for just under 80 yards, and he was no slouch either, averaging just under 5 a carry. He didn't start this great, however, as we had to overcome this stellar defense that he was up against, starting with the future Hall of Famer himself, Bobby Wagner. He finished the day with 11 tackles, and he got into the backfield twice to drop us behind the line. And when Wagner couldn't get to them, he had a ton of help from the secondary, who were playing close to the box all day long. More specifically, it was the pair of Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs who were involving themselves, as they together combined for 20 total tackles, with Diggs picking up a TFL as well. The true question was how our backup unit would fare against the various superstars on the Seahawks offense, and that started by shutting down Kenneth Walker. They did a pretty solid job with that, as he only managed 41 yards on 12 carries, but he did end up picking up a late touchdown to give them a chance. Then our focus would shift to locking down this Geno Smith passing attack, and we did a great job at that, as he only completed 52% of his passes and just slightly over 200 yards on the day. But he was distributing this ball to various weapons very well, and his biggest contributor was the 9th-year receiver, Tyler Lockett. He continuously came away with big grabs as he finished with 8 for 98, and he was the reliable option all day long. And when it wasn't him, it was the rookie, Jackson Smith-Njigba, who was contributing as he brought in 5 himself, finishing with 85 on the day, and he was a threat this entire game. And one of the more surprising developments of this game was that DK Metcalf did not have a single catch the entire day. However, he did have this amazing jet sweep play where he caught the defense off guard and took it 17 yards on his own. And his minimal effect may very well have been due to some of our backups in the secondary stepping up, like the 26-year-old corner, Rashad Fenton. He finished with 9 tackles in the day, with about half being solo ones, and he also found himself in the backfield once that dropped Walker for a loss. Let's talk about some of our other defensive standouts, like Cameron Thomas. He was electric coming off the edge, and he finished the game getting into the backfield 3 times, with 2 of them being sacks. One of them, which he combined with Myjai Sanders, who did all the work coming across the line to move Geno into the path of Thomas, and he had a great day as well, finishing with 3 TFLs himself. Now, switching to our offense, the departure of Colt McCoy would bring in David Blau, and while he finished with a solid 202 yards and 2 touchdowns, he struggled for a majority of the day, completing less than half of his passes. One of the biggest reasons was the amount of pressure he faced in the pocket from guys like Uchenna Nwosu, and he was flying around all day long, forcing Blau out of the pocket, and he ended up setting him down once to record a sack. And it didn't stop there, as the 4th-year linebacker Darrell Taylor almost made the biggest play of the game as he chased an escaping Blau towards the sideline, put on the hit which would jar the ball loose, but lucky for us, it would roll out of bounds to save the turnover. But besides that, we did get to see him involve some guys who don't tend to get a lot of action, like our tight end, Noah Togayi, as he finished with 5 catches for 53 yards, and he was the go-to guy when we needed one today. We saw KJ Hamler get a couple more opportunities again this week, finishing with 2 grabs for 34, but our player of the game has to be the 29-year-old receiver, Zach Pascal. He only brought in 2 on the day, but they were big ones, like this one in which he broke a slant big, going 69 yards for the score. And then all the way in the 4th, he would bring another on the underneath crosser, and with no one covering, he would trot this one in for another 6 points. And as we advance to the next week, many were hoping it would happen, we will be taking on the San Francisco 49ers in the Wildcard round. A very exciting game to look forward to, but we will get to that in a little bit. Hopping straight into the playoff picture, over on the AFC side, the Baltimore Ravens locked in the number 1 seed and will have the first round bye. It looks like the Bills squeezed their way into the final wildcard spot, so it will be another Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes battle in Arrowhead. The 3-6 matchup will be an AFC South battle as the Tennessee Titans will be welcoming the Indianapolis Colts. And another blockbuster game as it will be the Las Vegas Raiders who will travel over to Miami to take on Tua Tagovailoa and the Miami Dolphins. Switching over to our side for the NFC, we of course know the 1 and 2 seeds as Dallas clings on to that first round bye, and we will welcome the Niners in this Saturday night battle. An interesting one is the 3-seeded Detroit Lions will be welcoming the reigning NFC champion Philadelphia Eagles in their wildcard matchup. And following their loss to us this week, the favored Seattle Seahawks will journey into Charlotte, North Carolina to take on the Panthers. We then held our end of regular season press conference, and one reporter said, "Coach, you're heading into your first playoff game. Playoff success often makes or breaks a career. How important is your first playoff win?" And we responded saying, "Every game is important. And when you're playing a playoff team, you have to bring your best. There are no guarantees when you play teams that are this good." A very safe answer there, but we know the goal no matter what. As our regular season has concluded, it was now time to look at the league leaders for this season. The passing yards leader is none other than Patrick Mahomes with 4,874. He was one spot below the most touchdowns thrown, as that honor is held by Joe Burrow with 42. The most interceptions in the league was 21, thrown by Atlanta's Desmond Ridder. The leading rusher was none other than Josh Jacobs with 1,790, who also had the most rushing scores by a sizable margin with 21. It was the Titans' Derrick Henry who had the most broken tackles in the year with 63. The leading receiver was the Cowboys' CeeDee Lamb with 1,477. A man we will see soon, Brandon Ayuk, leads the league in receiving touchdowns with 13. But also of note, tied at second with 12 is our own Trey McBride, a phenomenal sophomore season. There was a tie for most tackles in the year with Green Bay's Devondre Campbell and Atlanta's Michael Walker at 139. Most TFLs in the year goes to the veteran defensive end Cameron Hayward. Most sacks in the year goes to Buffalo's Von Miller in his 13th season with 25, a mark which will break the all-time record for sacks in a season. Tennessee's Sean Murphy-Bunting leads the way in interceptions with 8. Stephon Gilmore leads the way with 3 defensive touchdowns, which we helped him out with early in the year. And we have a tie for most kicks made this year between our own Matt Prater and the Raiders' Daniel Carlson at 22. Now it's time for yearly awards, and your 2023 NFL MVP is once again Patrick Mahomes, who comes away with his 3rd of his career. We ourselves have been named NFL Coach of the Year with a 14-3 record in our rookie season. The NFC Offensive Player of the Year is, of course, Jalen Hurts. Defensive Player of the Year goes to Detroit's second-year defensive end, Aiden Hutchinson. The Offensive Rookie of the Year goes to the Falcons' Bijan Robinson. And our own Michael Wilson finishes at number 4. The Defensive Rookie of the Year is our own BJ Ojulari, a massive achievement for our second-round pick. And we have our 3rd rounder, Garrett Williams, finish at the 3 spot. The Best QB award goes to Hurts as well. Best running back is none other than Tony Pollard. The best receiver is LA's Cooper Kupp. The Best Offensive Lineman award goes to Carolina's Brady Christensen, but we have some good representation with Elijah Wilkinson at 3 and our first-round pick Paris Johnson Jr. at 5. The Best Defensive Lineman, of course, also goes to Aiden Hutchinson, but we have our own Clelin Ferrell sneaking into that number 8 spot. The award for Best Linebacker goes to Minnesota's Danielle Hunter, but our Defensive Rookie of the Year, BJ Ojulari, finds himself at number 3. Best defensive back goes to the Giants' Bobby McCain, but we finished with Xavier Rhodes in what was possibly a send-off season, and Marco Wilson at 7. And the Best Kicker award goes to Cairo Santos. With our Coach of the Year honors, we earned some staff points to spend. So under staff modifications, we purchased the first tier of hands-on defense, which will make defensive coordinator talent cost 10% less. And then we purchased the first tier of same team, same scheme, which will give us a 10% talent point refund when replacing a defensive coordinator, as we attempt to move down towards this after-school tutoring, as we have a lot of young guys and could truly benefit from more focused training. It was then time to look at the news headlines from around the league for this week. With the end of the regular season, the coaching carousel begins as we have multiple coaches let go after poor seasons, such as the Cleveland Browns' Kevin Stefanski, the Minnesota Vikings' Kevin O'Connell, the Atlanta Falcons' Arthur Smith, the Chicago Bears' Matt Eberflus, and the most surprising one of them all, the Washington Commanders decided to move on from former two-time Coach of the Year, Ron Rivera. I'm not sure they can find much better than him. We have some news around a draft prospect. The defensive end from Clemson, Aries Bates, withdrew from the NFL Combine as he suffered an injury in training. And hopefully this doesn't affect his draft stock too much, as he is currently one of the top ranked in the class at his position. And he is a very strong mobile guy who has a pretty solid collection of skills which can translate very well to the league. Now the focus turns to the playoffs, as many believe quarterback could be the deciding factor in Detroit when the Lions face the Eagles. Many are wondering which side can come out on top, as it will be two top offenses clashing in the Las Vegas Raiders and the Miami Dolphins. And last but certainly not least, with a returning Kyler Murray as the cover photo, the whole world is starting to talk about the most hyped of Wildcard weekend, as we will be staying home and welcoming our division rival, the 7th-seeded San Francisco 49ers. We saw them 2 times earlier this season, and since we already know their roster, let's take the time to talk about how those previous games went. The first time we saw this squad was back in Week 4, in which we played a defensive masterclass. We held them to a mere 3 points, rattling Brock Purdy as we picked him off and held him to just 133 through the air. We would end up getting the win, which would start our incredible 10-game stretch of victories. However, we would then meet them all the way in Week 15, and it was an absolute high-scoring classic. We did have Kyler Murray for this game, but he would exit in the second quarter with an injury, which then prompted Colt McCoy to give his best effort, in which he threw for well over 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, with 3 of them going for Trey McBride, but the mistakes became too much as he fumbled twice and he threw 3 interceptions, one of them being a pick 6 to Isaiah Oliver, and 2 going to Fred Warner late to end our chances. As we begin to prepare, we are still without our starting center, Froholt, who, as he is still recovering from those broken ribs. Should we move on, he will be available for the divisional round. And we will get no help on that front, as it looks as though the 49ers will be completely healthy and ready to go. So now it is time to set our game plan for this upcoming matchup. Starting on defense, we need to defend the outside run. Christian McCaffrey is one of the most dynamic players this team has ever seen. We cannot let him get free in space outside. And on offense, we are going to focus on throwing it short. Their defensive line is elite, and their secondary is nothing to laugh at either. So if we can get the ball out quick and keep the throws easy, we may have a chance to scrape out a win today. We can now set our game day goals for this week. First, we want to win the turnover battle. We talk about it all the time, but in the most even of matchups, you have to get the upper hand in this department. Next, we want to get 300 plus offensive yards. This is a stifling defense, but we have shown earlier this year that we can give them a good fight. After that, we want to hold them to 24 points or less. We know this offense will cause problems, but we have to hope our offense can overcome. And lastly, we want to get 1 interception. We saw back in the beginning of the year that when we can get the best of Purdy, it usually means well for our chances of victory. So we need to take 1 off him. We then finished up training for the week, and this time we escaped with no injuries to speak of, and we had a lot of growth heading into the playoffs. The biggest development came from our defensive rookie of the year, BJ Ojulari. He's had a stellar rookie year, and with multiple upgrade points, he began by improving his change of direction, finesse moves, play rec, tackling, man and zone coverages. And after that, he would then further improve in his awareness, pursuit, and zone coverage. Moving from our second rounder to our first rounder, our next man to talk about is Paris Johnson. He had a great rookie year protecting off the left side, and today he improved in his agility, awareness, pass and run blocking, his pass blocking against finesse moves, and strength. Then back to defense, we have one of our defensive captains, Jalen Thompson. He has been great this year, holding down the deep portion of the field and picking off a few, and today he improved in his awareness and zone coverage. And lastly, we have our red zone threat, Trey McBride. A great second year as he took the reins from Zach Ertz, and he had a great week of growth, improving in his acceleration, catching traffic, catching, change of direction, medium and deep route running, juke moves, and run blocking. And with that, we've discussed everything we have needed to for this week. If you guys enjoyed, remember to like, comment, subscribe, turn on those notifications down below, and I will see you all next time as we enter our first playoff game of the series in the Wildcard round as we welcome the San Francisco 49ers.